wanted to do my freezer meal conclusion for you guys. So the first meal I want to talk about are the chicken pulls. These I thawed overnight because it did have a sauce and it would have got stuck in the bag if I didn't thaw it overnight. So make sure if you have anything with sauce, you're thawing that overnight before throwing it in your crock pot. But after I thawed it, I just dumped it right into my crock pot. The barbecue sauce didn't lose any of its flavor. The seasonings that I put in with it didn't lose any of its flavor. It tasted exactly the same. The chicken fajitas, I just tossed that right into a casserole dish, popped it in the oven, and cooked it and seasoned it. So that one worked out really well. The onions tasted fine. They didn't taste mushy, and neither did the peppers. The chicken noodle, again, was no need to thaw. I just threw everything into my crock pot, added the chicken stock and the seasonings that I wanted. The celery wasn't soggy or mushy or anything. The carrots tasted fine. Pretty much everything that I put in there, the onions, nothing tasted freezer burnt, nothing tasted mushy or altered. It all tasted really good. The creamy pork chop, I did thaw that again because that had sauce in it, but once it was thawed, popped it in my crock pot. There's no loss in flavor from the brown sugar or anything that I put into that creamy pork chop recipe. Banana bread tasted just fine. It didn't taste, you know, as great as it does coming right out of the oven, but I popped it in the microwave for 10 seconds, warmed it up a little bit, put some butter on it, and you couldn't tell the difference. So that is one that I make quite frequently, is homemade breads, freeze them, and then I'll just microwave the little pieces with our breakfast, and it tastes about the same. The chili, I did go ahead and thaw the chili in the fridge overnight, flat, so that way the beans didn't get mushy, and then I just reheated that in a pan. And it tasted amazing. I was worried the beans were going to get really mushy, that there was not going to be any flavor because, you know, when you freeze things, you get concerned about loss of flavor. And it tasted just like leftovers in the fridge the next night. And for me, I love chili the next night because all of those flavors really absorb into the food. So it was really good, and I will be making double batches of chili. The pepperoni beef sandwiches and the pork chops, the ranch pork chops, were basically just, you know, making it like I would any other night. So that really wasn't a freezer meal, but I did make those. The breakfast sandwiches, the only thing that I'll say with the bagels, if you're going to prefer bagels over English muffins, make sure you take one out the night before and put it in the fridge and then microwave it. Don't try to microwave it frozen or your bagel is going to get mushy and the stuff on the inside is just going to be so hot that it dries it out. It ended up being really gross. So make sure you thaw your bagels, sandwiches overnight in the fridge, wrap it in a damp paper towel, and then microwave for a minute, and it'll taste fine. I found I didn't have to do that with the English muffins. I could just take them right out of the freezer and put them in the microwave. They didn't have a problem, but for some reason the bagel turned like mushy and rubbery kind of. So just keep that in mind. That was the only thing I had a problem with the breakfast bagels. Now the stuffed shells we had a problem with. I went ahead and made all the shells, put them in the sauce, and froze it in a foil pan. When I pulled it out of the freezer, I popped it right into the oven like I was told, and it took 4 to 5 hours just to cook that all the way through. Once I pulled it out of the oven, it was so dry that it looked like I didn't put any sauce in there whatsoever. So the next time for that, what I'm going to do is stuff the shells and then lay it on parchment paper in the freezer and freeze them individually, and then just put them in a Ziploc bag. So that way I could take out as many shells as I want and thaw them in the fridge the night before and cook them in the oven with fresh sauce instead of, you know, trying to do all one pan just right into the oven. The baked sausage ziti was an absolute fail. I thawed that overnight because I learned from the stuffed shells, and even thawing it for 48 hours, it was still kind of frozen in the center. It took 2 to 3 hours to cook it all the way through, and again I had the same problem. It was as if I didn't put any sauce in there whatsoever. Luckily this time I had extra sauce on hand, so I was able to add sauce to the dish, but it still just didn't taste right. I would say that's one that I don't recommend you freezing at all. We did a chicken and rice casserole, and I didn't cook the rice and freeze it. What I did was just put the chicken and the broccoli with the sauce in a pan and then added the rice when I thawed out the meal. Well, the broccoli ended up coming out really mushy, the chicken tasted really rubbery, and it seemed like there was like no flavor to it whatsoever. But we've had this meal before without freezing it, and it tasted fine. So this is one that just didn't come out of the freezer tasting that great at all. So I don't recommend freezing the chicken broccoli casserole. If I were to need to meal prep again, all of these items would be back on my meal prep list, and I may even go ahead and start meal prepping some stuffed shells. And like I said, the chili, I always double batch that, and I'll start freezing half now because we never really get through the chili. We end up having chili for a couple of days, so I'll probably end up double batching and freezing half. So hopefully that helps you guys out. If you guys have any questions, I'll post a link to my blog where I tell you how I did it. For all of the recipes, all of that stuff is on my blog. But baby's getting a little cranky now, so I'm gonna go ahead and go. But if you guys have any questions that aren't answered on my blog or I didn't answer in this video, please feel free to ask me, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!